Alright everyone, it's time for Occult Literature, video number 128, Witchcraft, Detected and Prevented. Links as always in the description to my edition of this work on Amazon. Second and third links to both of my literary blogs, one on Blogger, one on WordPress. The WordPress blog now finally has side tabs for its different categories, although I haven't yet, I believe, put this edition into that tab, so you can it'll take me a few minutes after I'm done with this video uploading. 92 pages in length, so a fairly standard length work for its era of manufacture, early 1800s. Now, this work is kind of false advertising, but for the early 1800s. That is, at the time, there was a general prevailing sense that it wasn't a good idea to fool around with witchcraft, but the way witchcraft was actually understood at the time was black magic, harmful magic. This sort of post-Enlightenment era thing wraps astrology and natural science, alchemy and stuff, up with the divine and with the scientific, fuses these things together and exempts it from witchcraft. And so in the early 1800s, the idea of detecting and preventing witchcraft was detecting and preventing harmful magic, hexes, devil worship, things of that nature. Therefore, this work is actually a grimoire, and it has multiple sources, some of which it alludes to openly. It covers herbal lore as well as the magical properties of stones, alluding to Albertus Magnus, actually on that token. It alludes to various incantations, folk rites, folk medicine, and sort of the simple incantations, very simple rituals and superstitions of the time. It obviously draws some of its content from the Petit Albert. Now, I'm not sure whether there was an intermediary work, because the Petit Albert comes from half a century earlier. It's possible that some intermediary work was used because the spells and folk rites are in a slightly different form. However, it also adds additional content. It's basically a stripped-down Petit Albert minus the talismans and the darker rituals, the more spooky ones. Takes that material, fuses it with some alchemical lore, as well as some additional medicinal materials that, of course, at the time of the Petit Albert's manufacture wouldn't have been around. So it is a grimoire. It's just a grimoire in the sense of the more white magic side, as it would be understood today. Now, of course, I don't believe in white or black magic. I think those terms mean absolutely nothing. It's really about whether you're trying to do harm to a living thing or an institution or an object or something, or whether you are solely seeking in some way through the divine or through the cosmic to edify, to heal, and things of that nature. Some of the rituals in here, though, are a little bit odd, and you can, of course, if you're getting a copy, prepare for some of the kind of out there medicinal content. For instance, it talks about making various pills, making various elixirs. It actually lists a couple of chemical reactions as being philosophical and alchemical in nature, which gets to the latter-day sort of thing within alchemy. It was understood more in the physical, pre-modern chemical sense, the sense of chemistry. And it was more alluded to as something that was an interesting reaction that seemed divine because they didn't fully understand what specifically was happening. And so you could take, and you've probably done this in chemistry class, if you take, I believe it's silver chloride and dip copper in it, and then they exchange and you can grow silver crystals. I believe it's that's the reaction. It's been a while since I, of course, studied chemistry. But it's similar to what they're talking about here. You can actually make a little tree of silver, copper, or something like that, or lead, by one of these reactions through crystallization. It's actually, it's hilarious that they thought that was a magical interaction, but at the time it must have seemed fairly otherworldly. But some of the rites in here are pure superstition. And a lot of it goes into the more of the physical, natural side. The Petit Albert, once you add the talismans and stuff, alludes a little bit more to the directly demonic and or angelic. This text doesn't. It does contain some prayers, though, for healing as well. An early example of the sort of dedicated Christian white magic side of things that you get later. You actually get it in like the 1910s, the 1920s, with Hartman's works, some of the post-theosophical works, things of that nature. So it's an incredibly interesting work. But it's really not about detecting and preventing witchcraft. It's about detecting and preventing disease and injury and things like that, and practicing white magic. It is itself magic. Understood in the modern sense, it is itself a style of grimoire. So very interesting work. Again, 92 pages. You can get my edition of this work, link in the description. It is the cheapest edition. I think it's like 1/4 the cost of the only other one that's on there. But they've got it marked up, and they're, I believe, using the original scan as well, which means that it's full of imperfections. It also did have a couple of missing pages. Unfortunately, it's impossible, it seems to me, to find a copy to restore those pages from. And that's a shame. It's something I'd rectify if I had access to a different copy. I would certainly change that in the future. So I'll keep my eye out, actually, and go back and edit it further if that arises, because it wouldn't be all that difficult. I did remove a couple of the large illustrations because they were absolutely meaningless. They were interesting woodcuts, but at the same time, it just adds bulk to it. That usually raises the price of a work. Like 92 pages is pushing it to the point at which you have to raise the cost. Really, it's just an illustration. It doesn't actually tell a story. It's sort of in a work. Sometimes you have illustrations that are symbolic. You need to retain them, or they're important in some way to illustrating the point of the work. Like an example of, here's diagram A, the first right. Here's diagram B, the magical dagger or something. You have to retain those. If it's just a woodcut showing some old man exorcising a demon, that may be interesting, but if you're getting up to that page limit before the cost rises, can it be jettisoned? I chose to. That's about all. Peace out.